What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on TGM Guitars. So as always, I like to start my videos off by saying thank you to everyone who subscribed, commented and left a like rating on recent videos. So if you haven't already, then please think about subscribing if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment, it's good to get some discussions going. Currently aiming for a 200 subscriber target, so it'd be quite cool to get closer to that. I think we're sitting around 139, 140. It keeps fluctuating. I don't know if that's inactive accounts being deleted or people unsubscribing, but hey ho, it happens. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump into the topic of this video. So this is a video that I've been putting off for a little while, quite simply because I wanted to get to know the piece of gear that I'm talking about. So today we are covering my Vox AC30 Custom, also known as the C2. So it's a great amplifier for if you're trying to get those classic tones, sort of the vintage 60s style of tones, as well as being a great pedal platform. So I'm just going to run over some specs and yeah, tell you a bit about this amplifier. So I'm going to be very professional and have the actual Vox page up here on my phone. So if you see me looking down, it's because, you know, yeah, remembering all of these things is sometimes a little bit tricky, even though I have been using the amp for quite a while. So, as the name suggests, it is a 30 watt valve amplifier. I have gone for the combo, so it's also got two Celestion greenback speakers, 2x12 configuration. The reason I went for this is because it's a bit easier to carry the whole thing around as one sort of contained unit rather than have to take along to a gig head and a cabinet. Also, it's just, yeah, it's kind of how you've got to have a Vox in my opinion. You've got to have it all sort of shaking itself to bits, and it does that. It is very loud. So you may be thinking 30 watts isn't that kind of big when it comes to amplifiers. I know most people will think of 100 watt Marshalls and your 120 watt 5150s, but 30 watts in the way that the valve handles its power is ridiculous. I can't remember if it's a Class A, Class AB. There's a bit of a debate out there as to which one it is, but basically the way it handles its power is just ridiculous to the point where it literally deafens you. I've taken this thing along to rehearsals and only ever had it up on about 2, maybe 3 out of 10 on the master volume, so it is a ridiculously loud valve amp. And the way that it gets that power is through 3 ECC 83s, or 12AX7s if you're in America, in the preamp section, and 4 EL84s, sorry, not 34s, 34s Marshall stuff, EL84s in the power amp section, which equates to its 30 watts in total power. So it's got a total of 4 input jacks on top. I will have shown a nice picture or something of the entire top panel so you can see what I'm on about, but it has 2 inputs for each, the normal and the top boost. It has a high and a low based upon whether you're running something like a Les Paul or a Strat into it. To be honest, I always use it on the high input. It just kind of pushes things a little bit more, and it's just the way I prefer it. Now, the normal channel bypasses the standard EQ section, which is your treble and bass controls, and just goes straight to the power amp. So it's got a bit of a darker tone to it. You can't control it as well, but it's really good when you push it with something like a treble booster if you're going for Brian May / Rory Gallagher tones. So it's a good channel to use. Some pedals sound better through it than they do through the top boost, because the top boost can be a little bit harsh sometimes. So it's definitely a good channel to have there. And then there's also the top boost. So the top boost has the treble and bass controls on it, and it's exactly what it says on the tin. You've got pushed highs, a little bit more mid-range, and yeah, it's great for those classic tones. So as far as the EQ section goes, as I said, just treble and bass. You have got a tone cut, which is in the next to the master volume control, which just allows you to sort of tame the mid-range a little bit if you're playing in different venues. Very useful to have, because on the older Voxes it's just a little bit crazy sometimes. So it allows you to just attenuate those mids a little bit and take some of the harshness out of the amplifier. Now, if you want a true normal channel as you would on an old vintage Vox, then you just basically crank that up to where it sounds best. I know when I'm actually using this amp through its own speakers, so in a live context or in a rehearsal context, I do engage that just a little bit to tame the amp a little bit more. Otherwise it's sometimes a little bit ice picky and a little bit too much, especially with the amount of gain I tend to use and some of the pedals I've got going through it. So apart from that, it has got onboard tremolo and also onboard reverb. The reverb is digital as is the Tremolo, I believe. I'm not, don't quote me 100% on that, but I think it's a digital Tremolo. Probably should have checked this up before I did this video, but it basically just adds a little bit of modulation to your signal. So when it's completely all the way down without a foot switch, it is actually engaged all the time, and I have noticed it every now and then. You notice a little bit of a tremolo thing going on. So I do think it's a good idea to either get a foot switch, or what I'm planning on doing is just making a little jack jumper so that I can plug it into the foot switch and basically have it permanently disengaged. Tremolo is one of those things that I've always wanted to use, but I've just never find a context in which I need to use it, or I just don't get on with it when I try and play with it. So I definitely need to sit down there too, sit down and play with, because it's something I do enjoy listening to and the sound of. So on both the tremolo and the reverb, you've basically got a level and a tone, or well, the level's speed in case of the tremolo. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all your inputs. You have got an effects loop and an external speaker output. So there's two speaker outputs. One's an extension cab, one's external speaker, so it completely cuts off the main speakers, which is how I'm going to be using it today. So before we jump over to some audio, I'm just going to go over my signal chain and how I'm running into this amplifier. So unlike my usual videos, I'm going to have no pedal board whatsoever. I'm going to go purely into the amplifier, just get some tones with that, have a play about with the things like the reverb and the tremolo, just kind of show you what this amp is capable of, and yeah, just have pure amp tones. Now for the recording, that will be going into my two notes through the extension speaker cabinet. Well, not extension, sorry, the external speaker, so I'll be cutting off the actual 2x12 speakers that are in the cabinet, simply because I can't use it at home, it's too loud. My neighbours would actually kill me, or I'd get evicted, and I don't really want that. So that'll be going into my two notes with a model of a Vox cabinet, which I believe has greenbacks in it in two notes case. You can get one that's got the Alnicos. So yeah, let's jump into that. Right, so as previously mentioned, I'm straight into the Vox, nothing in between, no pedals, and using my Johnson Strat today. So this is a guitar that I picked up for £45. I'll do a video on this at some point and go over the full history of it, but basically it's got the old pickups out of my Mexican standard Stratocaster, which I recently did a video on. So it's got Fender pickups, and as you can see, it's sort of a voodoo Strat pickguard. So I've got the reversed bridge pickup, so all of these are turned upside down in a sort of Hendrix fashion, which I felt I needed to do with this white Strat. So at the moment we are straight into the normal channel. Volume on the normal channel is about halfway up. Have got the master volume quite cranked. So it's something you won't be able to do in a live setting, trust me. Unless you're on a full sort of touring rig and professionally doing this, you're not going to be able to turn it up that much. It's about 3/4 of the way up. Obviously I'm going into the two notes, so I can do that. Otherwise you'll need some sort of attenuation system, because this thing gets bloody loud. But anyway, this is what it sounds like. Just go over a few tones. I'll play about with reverb, so I think it's completely dry at the moment. So let's just play a few chords and see what it sounds like. So on the normal you can hear it's a little bit darker. It's probably not what you're thinking of when you think of Vox tones, because with Voxes most people kind of think of the actual top boost channel. So what I'm going to do is chuck a little bit of reverb on there. I'm also going to just back it off a little bit, because I think that's a little bit too sort of pushed for what I'm going for at the moment, and try and get a few more clean sounds out of it. Do apologise, earlier on I said that it was a digital reverb. It's actually got a spring reverb tank in this, which explains why when I'm driving in my car I can hear a rattling sound coming from it. Yeah, I should have just thought, you know, that's a spring reverb. But anyway, That's what the reverb sounds like on a fairly low setting. So what I'll do now is crank it all the way up, which is something I will never do when actually using this live or using it for recording, but let's just see how extreme this goes. So as you can hear, it's not actually that ridiculous. That is probably usable if you're going for those kind of, how can I put it, your modern sort of indie ethereal tones. So. What I'm going to do is turn that tone up because it's a little bit dark. Now, I would play something that's along those lines, but personally I'm not an indie guitarist and never hope to be. Not that there's anything out there against those, but it's not my realm, so I don't really have a use for that at the moment and having that all the way up. Now I am planning on getting an actual external reverb unit to use with this, simply because it would be nice to go between different levels without having to do it on the amp. But it's perfectly usable, perfectly serviceable if you do want to just use the inbuilt reverb. So I'm going to back that down a little bit, just to somewhere where I would actually use it, and we'll carry on going through some of the other tones. So what I've done now is pushed the normal channel up a little bit. I say up a little bit, it's past halfway now, sort of somewhere in between halfway and 3/4, just to give it a little bit more push. And yeah, let's see what it can do. So as you can hear, it's quite dark. I've still got quite a bit of reverb on this, so I'm going to turn that down. But that's why I don't tend to use the normal channel as much, simply because it's a little bit too dark for me. I only really use it when I'm using the treble booster, because that's how Brian gets his tones with his Red Special. That's how Rory used to get his Strat treble boost tones. But as I said, I'm not going to go through any pedals in this video. I've got a couple of other videos where I go through my touring rig, and also going through all of my gain pedals through this amplifier, so go check those out if you want to hear what it sounds like with some pedals. So what I'm going to do now is engage the tone cut a little bit, and yeah, just show you what that does. So as you can tell, it muddies it up quite a bit. It takes away those highs and mids, which you probably wouldn't use that often. Although, as I said, I use this live mainly because the speakers haven't broken in yet. I haven't used it enough to kind of break the speakers in. So engaging that kind of takes some of the harshness away. So let's just push it all the way on that normal channel and just show you how flubby this gets. It's actually quite hard to play with that like that. It needs a little bit sort of needs lifting out of those muddy depths if you're going for that. So what I'm going to do now is jump over into the top boost channel and just show you what difference it makes. Okay, so now I'm in the top boost channel, volume halfway, everything on halfway, or except for reverb, and my EQ's on sort of 12 o'clock. So we will see what this sounds like now, and it kind of brings out those highs a little bit. So as you can tell, a little bit more chimey. I backed the reverb off a little bit because it's getting a little bit mad. Probably because it is a spring reverb and more push the amp. More push the amp? God, my English is doing really well today, isn't it? The more you push the amp, the more it rattles that spring and things can get a little bit out of hand. But probably more what you think of when you think of a Vox. So if I back that volume down a little bit, you can get those standard. Also cleans up really nicely with the volume control on the guitar. So what I'm going to do now is swap this out for something a bit more kick, something with humbuckers in. Not the Les Paul. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go into the Gretch this time and yeah, show you what it sounds like. Okay, so now using my Gretch Streamliner. There's a video on this as well if you want to know a little bit more about this guitar. But basically it's got a pair of Broadtron humbuckers in it, which are more PAFE than they are Gretch. But I do quite like this guitar coupled with this amp. Now what I'm going to do is push the treble up a little bit because it can get a little bit darker. So treble up a little bit. A little bit better, kind of sort of brings it out a little bit more. So what I'm going to do, chuck it on the neck. It's worth noting how sort of touch responsive this amp is. I absolutely love it for that. You can go. You can just go hard, you can go soft, and it kind of just has a little bit of dynamicism to it that you don't get with some other amplifiers. And yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is attempt to play with some tremolo. I know I said earlier on that I don't use tremolo, I don't get on with it, but you know, I've got to show off this feature of this amp. So let's engage that. So it's got a depth and a speed setting. I believe I said tone and something earlier, but depth and speed is what it is. Struggling to get my words out today. This is great, isn't it? So as you can hear, it's quite a nice tremolo. It can be subtle if you need it to be. What I'm going to do now is turn it up a little bit and get a little bit crazy with it. So if I turn the depth up, you can already hear that. And you know, it's not completely over the top. It's not too unorganic, too fake sounding. So it's quite a nice sound to have. Now if I turn the speed up, So yeah, absolutely beautiful tone. It works really well with this guitar. That's kind of why I picked this one out. But as I said, it's not something I use that often. It's not something I get on with as much. So apologies, this isn't the best kind of example of how to use it. But let's chuck it all the way up. Let's depth all the way up. This is the point where it sounds like the amp's cutting out. Speed all the way down. That sounds like volume swells at this point. Other extreme, all the way up. So yeah, you can go as crazy or as soft as you want on that. So I'm going to turn that off now. As you can hear, I'm pushing the amp a little bit more at this point. Now it's at sort of halfway, so. But it sounds absolutely lovely if you use your neck pickup on something like this guitar. So if you wanted to do blues on this amp, you could easily do a bit of blues playing. So it does all of that, and yeah, I don't know what else I can say. I'm going to push it a little bit more now and show you some of the overdriven tones that you can get out of this amp. So this is 3/4 of the way up. So now you're really starting to push the amp. So now you're starting to really push the amp. Yeah, let's just play some power chords and I'll show you what this sounds like. Still got the treble bumped up a little bit. Through the setup I'm using, if you start going mad with treble and bass, it kind of ruins it a little bit. But yeah, you can definitely do some sort of punky style guitar if you want with this. What I'm going to do is tune up and turn the reverb down, because as I said, when you start to turn the amp up, the reverb gets a little bit crazy and wild. But let's just tune up, because I noticed that was a little bit out. Right, so I've pushed the reverb to almost off, because when you start to get this amp really going, it does kind of get a little bit crazy. But yeah, let's go for something a bit more punky, dare I say it, and see what it sounds like with those push tones. Don't know what the hell I was doing now. I don't need to go for a solo when I probably shouldn't have. But anyway, that's what it sounds like. Let's push that all the way up. And this is probably breaking point for the amp. So, I mean, it's not completely crazy, not a ridiculous amount of gain, not to be expected from this amp. And even when you've got it up that high, you turn it down. And you're back into Vox territory where you'd expect it to be. So it's quite a versatile amp. Probably not if you're getting high gain, but with a few pedals you can easily achieve that. And I think this is probably one of the best pedal platform amps I've actually got. But I think I've done enough playing, I've done enough demonstrating. Hopefully it's given you a good sort of idea of how it sounds, but yeah, that's my Vox. So I hope it's been of some use to you, hearing what this amp sounds like without any pedals in front of it, with two different guitars, kind of just messing about with a few of the settings. It's probably not the most comprehensive demonstration out there on YouTube, but it's just kind of a quick overview of an amp which I'm going to be using a lot. Now, as somebody whose favourite guitarists include Hendrix, Clapton, Mayer, Slash, Randy Rhoads, you would think I'd be erring on the side of going and getting myself a Fender or sticking with my Marshall style amplifiers that I've got. But this thing has honestly changed the way that I look at amplification, the way that it takes pedals, the way that it cleans up so nicely. In my opinion, it's the perfect amp for me at this time, in this moment. I can get it to do whatever I want. As I said, it's a combo, so it's all in that one package. A bloody heavy combo at that. The thing almost breaks my back every time I pick it up. But at the end of the day, so does trying to carry a 4x12 speaker and having to wheel that around. And it's a little bit smaller. Not massively, but it's a little bit smaller than that main setup. And a little bit easier and more portable, even if it does weigh a ton. But anyway, I hope that's been of some use. Thanks for watching. Please leave any comments of any suggestions what I can try with the amp, ways that I can make my tone better, ways that I can make these videos better. As I always say, don't be nasty, just leave some comments. Try and get a discussion going. If you've got any pointers, I'm quite good at taking feedback and criticism. I have tried to improve the overall sound of my videos and listen to them on a few different media types before putting them out, because I know my first ones were a little bit harsh. So hopefully I am getting better and you can see that through my videos. But anyway, it's enough of me rambling. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.